Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we, a business owner and an artist, discuss the business of art and the art of business. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made, and I'm the host of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Jack Seiler, the creative director, Nam Nguyen, I butchered your name, Nam, sorry, of Supervillain, and Danielle Latif of Badassery. I'm forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast, and we are always looking for more sponsors. That said, Pixel Retentive is brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a team of artists and strategists who craft entertainment quality animation and illustration that grabs attention and gets results. With clients like Nickelodeon, WWE, and Sci-Fi, we know how to speak to pop culture savvy audiences. Visit getepicmade.com and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign. All right, so with us today, we have Jon Kane. Welcome to the show, Jon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Carl.
Excited to have you. So Jon is someone who calls himself a rock stacker. I mean that literally. He's an obsessive stacker of rocks and honestly just compulsive rearranger of things in general. We're talking motion pictures, sound, music, concrete, wood, clay, even room layouts and scribbles on a page. He approaches all of it with this raw, curious energy, like a lifelong amateur in the best possible way. No ego, just pure creative exploration. I'm super pumped to have you on, Jon.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
That was a very fun introduction. I don't think anyone's had such a whimsical and fun introduction on the show. And you are episode, I think, 87. So but that's saying something.
There was a question. It said, how can we introduce you like a rock star?
Yes, there was that.
I just immediately thought of rock stacking because I do that every day, all the time.
I love it. I love it. Are these like cairn piles? Like, is that what they're called? Like the little like wayfinder stacks of rocks? You know what I'm talking about?
Like there are people do that. I started doing it because I was teaching myself. I've been sculpting a lot, making sculpture.
Nice.
And I really don't know I'm not schooled in sculpture. And I was amazed by certain sculptors. Greg Kuzi in particular, I was looking at his stuff and, they seem like simple shapes and then you try to mimic it and it's like, his is all sexy and mine's all and it's very small things. And then I was like, okay, well, if I take two rocks and I balance them on each other, what form does that make? And I just realized that when things balance, when they actually balance, no matter what the objects are, they look good when they're balanced. So I don't just balance rocks. I'd balance, vacuum cleaners, shopping carts, random, construction things on the way to work. I'm like, oh, I'll take that cone and put it at an angle on that thing. It was just sort of became, kind of an erotic hobby. But it is true that when things balance, gravity is very strict. It either balances or it doesn't. Right. Truth of it. So it was a way for me to have, physics sort of tell me if a thing was working or not. And I noticed some stuff about that. It made, my sculptures better.
I love that. That's magical. It's just like that creative part of your brain at play, interacting with the world around you. And it's teaching you things probably subliminally that you probably don't even know that like then come into your work, right? So
100%, even when you're editing something, balance is an elusive thing. And, when you're trying too hard or extending something beyond what it wants to be, you automatically end up with something that's, you can decorate it and make it look okay, but it's not perfect, right?
Yeah, 100%.
You think back on that, like when you look at two objects and you're like, oh, this, you look at it and you're like, this should balance. And then gravity tells you, like, no, it's way over there. And you're like, oh, right. Look at that. Huh.
Dude, I love this. That might be one of the coolest things I've heard someone say on the podcast. That's amazing. All right. So before we jump into today's topic, I would love our audience to get to know you a little bit better. So how long have you been in your industry and what project are you most proud of so far?
This is the only industry that I've ever been in. since college. I graduated college in 1984.
Okay.
So I think, and I went right, I got vacuumed right into the MTV, the birth of MTV, really, because of Fred Seibert. Also, the reason that I, know you.
Absolutely.
He had started MTV with his buddy from Columbia, Bob Pittman, and and then he set that up, and then he created a company called Fred Allen, which was the ad agency basically for MTV. So came up with the logo and all the promos and all the stuff that we know and love about MTV, which is, MTV's was just a package for free material, which is music videos. So the packaging, became the personality of the channel.
Yeah.
And for somebody like me coming out of college, I didn't even know I learned to edit in college. It's a whole other story on my own. There was no editing program. There was no film program at my school.
Oh, wow.
I started as a pre-law major and ended up as I did an independent, I just was doing my own thing. And one of the things was I did a film and I learned how to edit with VHS, analog editing. But I thought I was going to go into the radio because I was a DJ. I ran the radio station. I was a DJ in the club in town 3 nights a week. And one thing led to another. And I learned that editing was actually like a job. So I became what they call a permalancer at Fred Allen. I was editing, most of the stuff, and it was all the promos for MTV. Then all the other channels were born. Nickelodeon was born, so now they're doing stuff. There was something called the Movie Channel, VH1, of course. So Fred Allen handled the marketing for all of those, and I was the in-house, editor. And then editing led to, why don't you shoot that one? Shoot it and edit it. So I started doing that, and one thing led to another. And, ad agencies in the late 80s were looking for the MTV style. Like now it's so ubiquitous, we don't even know what that means. But before that, commercials were very narrative. It was narrative storytelling. They weren't wildly splashy. You think of like the Mean Joe Green Coke commercial, which is like Steelers, a football player who shares a Coke with a little boy as they walk through the, tunnel to the field. It's that kind of, and then MTV comes and we're like Xeroxing things and animation and mixing media, like, sort of like experimental films from the beginning, really, of film. Yeah. So painting on film.
Dude, I love the claymation. Like I think peak for me was like the celebrity death match. Like I could not get enough of that when I was a kid. Like it was
you know why? Because all those things are cheap to do, how to do them.
Right.
So it was all about how do you make this something look amazing for $7. Like school. Then ad agencies wanted the MTV style. So, and I hated commercials. I mean, my whole thing in school was I studied Marshall McLuhan and Tony Schwartz, and it was all this kind of, X-raying the media machine and all the ways it's evil but amazing. So I was like, yeah, commercials? I'm not doing commercials. And, but then they say, all right, well, you can do the same thing you're doing there at MTV on that promo you did, except you'll have 10 times as much money and any cameras and things that you want. So, of course, you say, all right, well, I'm not really going to be like an ad guy, but they're giving me money to mess around with like real toys. So, what happens next? Then you start doing a lot of those, and then you realize, wow, I'm making a lot of money. And, my company formed organically around that. I didn't know anything about business at all, but it becomes brutally obvious what to do when, okay, you show up to rent a camera and they're like, where's your insurance certificate? I'm like, I don't have one. So, well, we can't rent you a camera without it. It's like, how do I get it? You got to go down to City Hall and apply. Okay, you go down to City Hall and they're like, all right, where's your DBA? I'm like, what is it? It's a doing business as. You got basically, honey, you got to set up a bank account. at the bank, then come back here. Then, so, one thing is like, all right, now I'm at the bank. It takes me 3 days to get the camera, but now I've got a business. They make you choose a name at the bank. Like, what's your business called? I'm like, all right, it's Jon Kane Productions. Like, all right, what kind of checks?
Nailed it.
What kind of checks? What do you mean? And he pulls out this huge book of like the different sizes, but most importantly, you can have them put a logo on your check, and they had different industries. Like, what industry are you in? I was like, doesn't matter. I'm going to farming. And farming, I could have a pig on my check. So I chose that, a big check.
Yeah, gotta get the big one.
It was so much fun.
Dude, that sounds awesome.
Jon Kane Productions with a big pig on my giant checks. I do the thing, and you rent some stuff, and you do some things. You hire some people to do some stuff, and then you're like, "Cool, did that? Wow, made some money." Well, okay, they're gonna give me $5,000, so I guess it seems the game is spend less than that.
Yeah, there it is.
Spend as much less than that as you can, and immediately you're tuned into the friction between the art and the money, because as the producer, director, editor, everything, you want to make as much money as possible, but you also want to make a cool thing.
Yeah.
So like, all right, my very first thing involved rear projection, so I got to rent a projector and a screen. Go to rent a projector. This one's $20 for the day, but it's only so bright. And this one's $100 for the day, but it's really bright, and it's going to make a great picture. You're like, all right, I'm going to go for the $100 one. It's okay. And you keep doing that, and you're warring with yourself about, anyway, learned all that.
Yeah.
Then, the bills start coming in a little while later. Like, oh, I got to pay some bills. That's fine. I got plenty of money. And you start writing and keeping track, and it's all like that. And then you start doing like 2 jobs at once, and the bills, and then you're like, I don't have the time. Like, the bill thing, love it. Put on some classical music, makes me feel wealthy, and I write checks. I don't have time. Like, I got home at 2:00 in the morning, 4 days in a row.
Right.
I'm drowning in bills, not because I can't pay them. I don't have the time. Someone said, it's called a bookkeeper. Like, what is that? Where are they? They're in Staten Island. They're older, sort of heavy-set women who's doing.
And they got the numbers on lock. You just put it in their direction.
Yeah, they're all over there. So I hired one, and phone calls back then were important. No cell phone yet, so you have an answering machine that gets full, so people can't leave answers, messages for the next job because you're not home to answer the phone. It's like, dude, you need your receptionist. You need a space to put a receptionist and a bookkeeper. Yeah. Oh, I need a space. That has its whole thing there. Now you're spending money on, like, hey, we want this place to look cool. Like, that not that cool. All right, just a little cool. We want it to be comfortable, not that comfortable. You're warring with, it's your money.
Yeah.
You learn very quickly. It's not complicated. It's just very present. So the company built up. I had a partner at one point, Steve Stein, amazing. He's also, for hip hop fans, might know some seminal records called by Double D and Steinsky, the Payoff Mix, Lesson 1, Lesson 2, Lesson 3. These are bedrock hip hop collage records before the mashups. This is where, they all learned it. So anyway, he was my partner. I met him. That's a whole other story through the DJing thing. He was a writer and sound designer, and I was a director and editor. So our company would, just get the promos. He would write the idea, and I would shoot it and edit it, and he would do the sound. And we had a great 10-year run. Our company was called Mass Media.
Oh, cool.
And of course, I start getting offers to direct things from ad agencies, big budget things where it's already written, and they want me to direct it and edit it. And I could hire Steve to do the sound if they want, but often they have So I was real, and I couldn't do those jobs at mass media because we were tied into this concept of we do the whole thing, which is great for promos and the whole Fred and MTV and cable world. But ad agencies don't work that way. They have their own writers, right? So there was a friction there, and I said, you know what, I want to form my own company, production company, and you form your own company. We can still work together on the jobs that need all the things soup to nuts, but I'm also then free to produce commercials that have, direct and produce and edit commercials that may or may not need a writer. So we formed two companies. I was Optic. We were out at, drinking margaritas thinking like, I'm like the eye and he's like the ear. So I did Optic Nerve and he did Sonic Boom. So Optic Nerve was born in 1991, I think.
Cool.
I moved into a big space. This was, because now the thing of ad agencies, you kind of have to have a fancy thing. It wasn't cool to be in the basement, with red chairs anymore. So I leaned into that. My brother's an industrial designer and architect. He designed the thing. It was a palace of production, 7,500 square feet on West. I had the whole floor of this amazing building. So I built this crazy thing. And, what you do if you have a production company is you get a stable of directors. Even, it's not just me. If I can get other directors in my, so the person that taught me that was my rep. Another thing that came up, you get a phone call eventually. Hey, I saw your Swatch watch commercial. Do you have representation? Like, what is that?
Right.
Like, it's called a rep. So I got a rep, and the rep then said, all right, if you want to build your company, we should, attract some directors. And that was his job. So anyway, we had 6 directors. It was a big company. We're billing, $20 million a year. And my life quickly became stressful because it's a lot. Now it's the same concepts, but the numbers are just bigger. They were spending much more, making, but what you actually make, it's still the same thing. You got to spend less than you make. And that's stressful. Sometimes you spend a lot because, that's going to lead to other things, but then it does or doesn't. And then, anyway, the whole thing, I was like, you know what? I'm not really a businessman. I'm an artist. I want to make stuff. I don't want to worry about this. And I downsized the company. I didn't close the company, but I got out of that space and I went back to my brownstone in Park Slope in Brooklyn. And we had this little low ceiling basement. I dug it out and built a studio down there. And I worked sort of, by myself for a while, just sort of freelancing basically. And I had far fewer expenses. I didn't bill as much, but it was very profitable to do it that way. Basically no overhead. And I could work when I wanted to. That's about the year 95 or so, or 6. I decided, all right, I'm taking every August off. I'm not working in Augusts. Augusts are free, no matter what. And so I did that for 25 years. I mean, I still basically do it, but now I can't always afford an entire month. So yeah, the balance between, and I also was having children. I wanted to be there with them. I didn't want to be commuting to the city every day. I wanted to be able to just go upstairs. So the balance of my life and my money became very important. And it wasn't like I told myself the work life, it was just odd. I was just becoming miserable when I was that busy.
Yeah.
The money didn't matter. I'm not like a mansion guy. I wasn't like, but just do it for 10 years. I'll have a mansion. So I just was like, fuck it. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no one really likes those people anyway.
That was one lesson that I learned early is you got to set it up how you want to set it up. Otherwise, you're just angry all the time.
Yeah.
See that.
And that's sort of what we wanted to focus more on in this episode too. And I love that whole background. You went all the way up to 20 million a year, which is wild, right? That's some people's dreams. And but like you said, the numbers are, they're vanity numbers at that point, right? Because it's how much are you keeping and what joy is it giving you? Like, you built this whole thing and then it was zapping your whole life. And for what, right?
There were a couple of things I had to be financially independent early. My parents, I was born late. It's a whole story. My parents were older. They were like getting into the old person problems when I was in my 20s.
Mm.
What most people are going through in their, late 30s, I was going through in my late 20s. Their money was a problem, their health, everything else. So I was really on a mission I was at zero when I started in terms of money. And I wanted to get enough money that I could help my parents out. I could buy myself a house. I was renting an apartment in the East Village. I wanted to get up on my feet.
Yeah.
And I did that. And that's what I realized is like, I bought a house. I have all the insurance that you need to have. I have a car. I bought my parents an apartment. I got them all set up. And so that was important at the beginning. I did a lot of stuff that I didn't necessarily feel like doing in order to get a foothold, right?
Gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. Necessity, survival, those kind of things. Yeah.
But then once you have your foothold, you have all your basics handled. I think what what I noticed from my peers is they're going now for fame and real riches, like the beach house and the award, you know.
Yeah.
And I wasn't willing to suffer the amount that I was at to suffer to do all that. It wasn't in me. I'm not really, I'm not, I didn't know this, but I'm not a striver, and nothing against strivers. You either are or you're not.
Yeah.
If you're not a striver and you play the striver game anyway, you're not going to be a happy person.
You burn out. Yeah. Yeah. You empty
You
your
just get
cup.
a lot of money. You're going to end up being that person who's dead in their bathtub because they were just whatever,
No, I get it. Yeah. I know some of these people. We all do, but I think
striving is cool. Like if the strivers who make it, I can see the joy they get out of the recognition and the watches and things. And I get it. It's totally fine. I don't have that.
No, I think what you have been saying that I've been hearing, the undertone here is, you're very observant and lots of introspection, and you're just kind of going with the flow and paying attention. Like you didn't know what you need to do with the business, but you just kept going in the direction it was pointing you to figure it out, right? And then when you got to a space and you're like, hey, I'm miserable, let me point myself in a different direction so that I can scale back and do things and have this balance. And it wasn't because someone told you needed work-life balance, because you looked in the mirror, was like, I need something different, And I can totally respect that. That's amazing.
A crucial thing that I also realized early is that I sort of started keeping a tally of like the times when I was really happy and felt settled in myself.
Mm.
And it was always tiny things. Like I could be like straightening up the studio, even though I didn't have any work necessarily, or straightening up the studio. And then, my daughter comes down and we play, checkers, and there's no rush.
Oh, wow.
Rushing is bad for me. So I was like, I don't really get any happier than this. I'm 100% happy right now. And it's based on a little free time. No one's really telling me what to do, a thing that I don't really feel like I'm just doing what I want to do. And they happen to be straightening this place up and playing checkers with her.
I love it.
And that, I think most people will realize that when they look at it, when they're happiest is not necessarily when they're getting the most money or winning the big game or all that.
Yeah.
So I started chasing that basically, which is basically running away from things that are going to be stressful. I can't handle it.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense, man. You only get one life, and you gotta love it and do your best to work towards it being enjoyable, whatever that looks like for you as an individual, right?
And also there's also social currency. I mean, people are into currency, right? So social currency is a lot of forms. Like you trying to be a cool person, or you're trying to be like the successful guy, or you're trying to be the responsible one, or you're trying to be the maniac, or whatever the role is you're putting up for yourself.
Yeah.
I realized I was very comfortable being the one who was like happy with the paint splattered clothing, eating at the local sandwich shop, not the fancy place in Manhattan.
Right.
And that became my currency. Like people would be like, "Hey, well, how come you're so like chill about, like?" Meanwhile, when I tell, I can spin it fancy. Like I'm a film director.
Yeah. Worked for all these big projects.
Dealt with many famous people. Like I just, they probably know that just because, but that it's like but I'm not doing that, So that's how I live. Like it's all very down home.
Yeah, it's just humble and authentic. It's beautiful. I can respect it. We need more people like that in the world,
Maybe, but you also need strivers. Strivers do. I had a partner. There's a whole story about that. He was is a very talented guy and a real striver. And we used to do this thing. I'm a DJ, right? So he formed a band which became very popular called Fisher Spooner.
Okay.
And that whole project started in my company, and specifically in my basement at Park Slope. They signed $1 million record deal, and they're just having great success. They got flown over to sign the deal on the Concorde. Meanwhile, his day job was working with me making, promos.
Oh, cool.
And they started getting offers to DJ. This is in the early 2000s. This idea of the celebrity DJ. Like Madonna would go and DJ, can't DJ. I mean, it's not a DJ, but they pay her big money to show up for a couple hours. And so that trickled down to be like, oh, well, popular, artsy, kind of cool bands, if we can get them to DJ, we'll pay them a whole bunch of money. But none of the people in Fisher Spooner were DJs. So I was like, I'll do the DJ. You guys show up, whatever. My partner, Warren, would curate the music before we went because he has good taste in music. And he was the musician behind the project. And we would travel around. I mean, they treated us like real rock stars. It was hysterical. I was like being treated like the Rolling Stones. Meanwhile, I'm like, doing Dance Dance Revolution or something. It's air guitar. But it was really fun. And we would fly all over the world, make ridiculous money to DJ for 2 hours. And as a club DJ, I know like real DJing is you show up, it smells like yesterday's piss and beer, the place is fucking empty.
Yes.
And you got to start playing music. There's nobody there. And there is that peak time. It's about an hour or two, depending on where in the world you are, midnight to 2 a.m. You're in Sao Paulo, it's 4 to 6 a.m. Wherever it is, it's the cum shot of the night. And it's what you do it for. Well, we would get hired just to do that part.
Oh my God, that must be nice.
I would always apologize to the DJs that we would come after because we're headlining, right?
Right.
Say like, I know this is and the DJ would be like a way better DJ than me.
Wow.
Not always, but you know what I mean? Like he's a real DJ. Like I would always apologize, like, sorry, it'll only be 2 hours. And they'd always laugh. And we'd come and it's like the crowd is completely lubricated and we just stick our dick in it and show up and take all the money. It was such a cheat. And so that was my attitude about it. It was just pure fun and ridiculous and it wasn't going to last forever. Warren, however, is a striver and this was his brand. It was almost like I wasn't there. Nobody knew who I was. They just assumed I was one of the band members.
Right.
So for me, it was like being there and not being there. So it was easy for me to be chill about it. He was very concerned and was very concerned about all the particulars. Like it was always first class air, first best hotel in the thing. And we show up at a place. It's like the car didn't show up. The stretch whatever. And we had to take the train and it's 1 a.m. in a foreign country. He would go fucking ballistic.
Oh, wow.
Get the car there. And I appreciated that because I was just like looking at the map, like, all right, we got to, figuring it out. Like, we got to take the train. It's no big deal. So it was good that he was a striver and he made that band, right? And he made all that happen. And it required a lot of things like this, like doing interviews, which this is real chill and everything. It's fine. But he we go out of his way for all that stuff. And I appreciated it. I was in the vapor trail of his striving. And really, that's kind of what I've done all the time. Like I'm in the vapor trail of a lot of really heavy people, Godfrey Reggio and, Steven Soderbergh, Mira Nair, all these great genius people. I help them and enjoy helping them along the way. And I don't want to be on the nose cone of that stress bomb.
Yeah. No, I can totally respect that.
I just got to know who you are, I think, and it took me a while to figure that out.
Yeah. I think we're gonna focus the title of this episode to just creative introspection on your journey, right? Like, because I think there's a lot in here about that. That's
Well, also now I'm old. I'm 62 years old. I wish I say this like almost daily now because this has definitely been that happiest period of my life, and it's
beautiful.
I am the poorest I've ever been for a number of reasons. Whatever. I don't have the country house. I don't, but I'm the happiest because I'm the most comfortable in my skin. And I wish I knew the things that I know now about what you're talking about in my 30s and 40s, because I didn't. I was still thinking like, kind of frustrated with myself. Like, I couldn't handle the stress of having a $20 million production company. I didn't like it. So I didn't make the gazillions of dollars that a lot of my peers did go on to become famous and rich beyond belief. And I'm still basically doing the same thing that I ever was doing, but I'm happy with it,
Yeah. You don't get any of your time back in this life, right? Like you're trading, your experiences for the time that you have, and you should be doing things that you feel fulfilled and make you have joy, whether that's stacking some fucking rocks or like whatever. Like if you have your needs met, like finding joy should be more important than did I make more money than somebody else. Like there's a whole weird consciousness in our society where we worship money and not like actions and not things that people do and like just joy in their own heart. Like I would rather see my friends and family members have their needs met and be deeply happy, like you're talking about, than any of them be rich and miserable. Like
right.
I'd like 100% of the time, even that for myself.
So it's hard to do though, because if you get, this happens less and less for me, but you have those moments where you're like, you see another kind of easy breezy person who's really successful and they have the house and their kids have the nicer bike than your, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But the problem right off the bat, and I check myself now every time it happens, if you get into comparing yourself and caring what other people think, you're always going to lose because there's always somebody who's smarter, taller, richer, stronger, always.
Yes, always.
And it doesn't end. It's an endless pit of misery.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to do sometimes, especially when you've got, kicked in the teeth about something in one category or another in your life and you're really feeling like a loser. You have to do that anyway. Even people who are, Elon Musk, I can guarantee you feels like a loser in his own way, probably daily now, but you know what I mean? It's all relative.
Yeah. He lost half his net worth in the past 3 months. Half.
Yeah. He can always comfort himself as this. It doesn't matter. I could, not ever get out of bed and throw $1,000 bills out the window from now until I die, and it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's really a perspective thing. It's really about Like, is the glass half empty or half full? And that's your choice because it's the same fucking glass with the same amount of water. So it's like,
it also gets back to like and another thing that you discover as you go, but you need to listen. It's like, what do you individually like? What do you like to do? What do you like to look at? What do you like to eat? Like you yourself. And it's hard to know. Like I have now an 8-year-old son, in addition to a 27-year-old daughter and a 30-year-old daughter.
that's a spread.
It's really great. One of the good things, there are not good things about being older and having a young child, is you really understand the journey that they're going on better than when you were a young parent with a baby. Like you're a child. When I was 28 having a child, I was a child too. Not that it's not great, but you get a different perspective. So I see him now, and my number one thing with him is like trying to give him opportunities to find out what he likes.
Yeah.
They don't know.
And
Nobody, a lot of people go through their whole life and not know. But when you get a thing that you're interested in or that attracts you, no matter what it is, literally, it's worth pursuing it to find out what it is about it that you like. Like, why do I like that? And this other person doesn't like that. They like this other thing, which I don't like. And it's critical. And I tell my advice to young creatives who are coming up with this thing of the balance of, do I make money? It's like, don't ever get really great at a job that you don't like.
yeah, that's great advice.
All the time. Okay, now I'm circling back to your original question was about this balance. So early in my thing, after the Fred Allen time, I had been doing a lot of editing. I was really good at editing. Back in those days, you used to do an offline edit, which is like 3/4-inch videotape. I'm going like this because there were knobs. And then you take that offline with some time code notes and things, and you go to an online editing room, which is something that I think most people under the age of 50 don't know what that is. But it was a very expensive, very fancy facility that you went to recut your thing and put in effects and graphics and things. And it was like, back then, $1,200 an hour.
Wow.
It was a lot at stake. You didn't want to make any mistakes. You don't want to waste any time. And the guy who sits in that room is called an online editor. Very fancy, kind of like, I was into DJ booths and buttons and knobs. It was like a spaceship, dark room.
Yeah.
Somebody would scurry in and bring you, things to drink. And so anyway, they offered me a job at one of the big places called Teletronics. They're long out of business now, but to be an online editor. This is like a thing that people who want to be editors would kill for this job. This is a high-paying job with benefits and rock solid thing. And I was just out here like freelancing, like a feather in the wind. And I was very flattered. And I remember like I started to get this feeling in my chest. I was like, all right, well, wow, that's great. Thanks so much. Let me think about it. What's the money? Unfathomable situation. And I didn't take it because I knew that I wasn't going to be happy going into a dark room every day, taking instructions from people behind me.
Yeah.
I was going to die there.
Yeah.
So
it's beautiful that you saw that.
Or like, you're a fucking idiot, dude. You're an idiot. Is there people like some of my friends went to Wall Street, right? So it's like getting offered whatever the first good chunk on the Wall Street after you're an assistant. Like I'm a vice chairman of department.
I don't know what I don't know either. But yeah, I'm with you.
They were killing for those jobs, killing themselves. And I just was like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'd go back to my shitty little apartment with my barbecue on the roof and be able to take a run at 2 p.m. and a nap.
Huge.
That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. I'm like you, man. I've always valued my personal freedom to be able to do whatever the fuck made me happy in the moment. That's been my number one priority my whole life.
Possible. And then sometimes you do too much, like you.
Of course.
fuck off and miss an opportunity, or you'd make better to err in that direction, in my opinion, than to err in the direction of, oh, now I'm locked into this high paying job that I have to do for another 5 years to be able to cash out or whatever it is.
Or just afford your lifestyle that you built up now that's $20,000 a month with a bunch of shit and boats and houses.
This is a nightmare to me.
Yeah, 1,000%. I'm with you. 100. I'm with you on that.
I totally will accept the fact that I can't handle it. I don't want to handle it.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like you said, it's different for everybody. Some people are great in that space and that fulfills them and it doesn't make them miserable and they love their job and that's great. Everything's different. It's really that deep look.
Are more available for young, creatives to do it. Like I'm sitting in front of a computer here that maybe all this gear here, I mean, it's nice stuff, maybe costs $10,000 or $15,000.
Right.
Back in the day, though, to get machines that would do what this does, this was a multi-million-dollar idea. They had a thing called the paint box. That was the After Effects of the day.
Right.
It's a very, very fucking expensive. You're not going to buy this thing unless you're going to book it solidly for 5 years to make back your money at $1,000 an hour, right? So now with a laptop and some monitors, kids are doing things that we
couldn't conceive of.
Do that easily.
Yeah, no, it's
part. The bad part is most of it, because it's so easy, is really shitty. But that's a
whole other thing. Yeah, for sure. Well, this seems like a good place to roll into the end of the show here. So we have one last question for you. Is there anyone or anything in your career you'd like to shout out to the audience? Maybe a mentor, a valuable resource, favorite client?
Definitely the mentor of my entire career and continues to this day. I'm on this podcast because of him, is Fred Seibert. And Fred has been just a giant in the kind of, well, now he's a giant in the animation world, but in the sort of independent makers world.
Yeah.
He's a very loyal friend, and he's always there to talk and to give advice, and he's hired me many times to do things. His genius is what he does, and I try to do with creatives that are working for me, and I learned this trick from him. He doesn't tell me ever what to do. He says, I trust you. I know whatever you do is going to be great. And what that does is immediately puts a huge amount of pressure on me. It's much more pressure than saying, don't fuck it up.
Yeah.
Saying don't fuck it up with a compliment. And it's saying it's all on you. And I work harder for that guy for less money. And this is his other genius. It's not a payday when you go to Fred. It's continuing the relationship, and it's an okay payday, but he sharpens your skills by saying, you're the genius here, you do it. And it makes you work really hard. And I appreciate that from Fred and his friendship from over the years. Yeah.
I love Fred. And I'm sure, when he says something like that to you, it also triggers this like belief in yourself, right? Like we all still have imposter syndrome. Doesn't matter how successful we are. But when someone like Fred is just like, hey, you're the genius. You can do this. You got this. I know you'll do amazing. Like the pressure's there. And you also believe that maybe he's right. Like maybe this, so it's a win-win. It's a way better way. Than me. Yeah, like I am a
genius after all.
Yeah, right. Fucking beautiful. I love that. Thank you.
What a genius I am.
Yeah. That is amazing. And Fred has been on 2 previous episodes of the podcast. So if you scroll back, you'll find Fred Seibert. And huge shout out to Fred for introducing us. Amazing guy.
I call it Fred and his eyebrows. Yep.
I love Fred. Yeah, he's such a good guy. All right. So we've been talking with Jon, who's the owner of Optic Nerve. .USA, is that the URL?
It's opticnerveusa.tv.
.tv, there it is. Okay. You can check out their website at opticnerveusa.tv. But if listeners want to follow up with you directly, where should they go?
Email Jon, Jon, no H,
Okay.
at opticnerveusa.tv.
All right. Well, that sounds perfect. All right, Jon. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, man. This was a really fun story.
I feel like we're just getting started. I could do this all day.
I love it. Well, we're going to have to have you come back for another episode sometime.
Definitely.
Cool, man.
All right, Carl. Thanks so much.
See you next time, friends. Take it easy.
Have a good day, everybody.
We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.